Hello and welcome back to the U Up podcast. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Jared Freed. It is so good to be back here with you, Jordana. We love a Sunday special. How are you? What's happening? To let people behind, before we get into how are you and what's happening, let people behind the curtains. We're doing a throwback to the Zoom days. We're getting ahead. Yes. We're taping this, before we tape the episode you just listened to last Wednesday. I don't know why I'm giving out all this information, but we're
letting them behind the curtain.
Right, let them know what's going on here. And go ahead.
Yeah, that's why you're watching this on Zoom.
Yeah, that's why you're watching, the YouTube. That's why you're seeing us.
Yes, the YouTube.
Yeah. So, but what's going on with you, Jordana? How are you?
I'm good. I was at a wedding. Saw you were too. It's wedding season.
Wedding season is upon us. And it's weird because I felt like I was out of, some years I have none. And then some years it's like, you're in it, right?
Do you usually just have one when you're back in it?
One or two. And I'm a big say no to weddings guy. Like I'll good luck.
Oh yeah, is that a big hobby of yours?
Yeah, a big thing of mine. Check is in the RSVP. Good luck. Have a nice life. Maybe I'll see it.
You should put that in. You should put that in your dating app bio.
No to wedding guy. Sounds like fun.
Not interested in being your plus one.
Yeah, right. Exactly. How was the wedding? I mean, should we talk about this now or should we get in? We do have an update. I mean, a long-awaited update that I kind of want to talk out with you.
Yeah. Fuck our updates. Let's get into this update because this is a much better update than either of us talking over our stupid little weekends. Right. I mean, I have 6 weddings.
You have 6?
6.
Is it?
2 are down, so 4 more.
4 to go. Is there of the 4? I guess you might not want to answer this, but are there ones you're looking forward to more than obviously as we all do? Is there one that's on your list of like this is the one that I'm targeting as the wedding of the summer?
They're all like Mike's friends.
That's great.
So they're relatively equal.
Right, those are equals, and it's great to be the guest. Not a lot of heavy lifting for you. You don't even have to remember names.
Yeah, I just show up, pick a nice outfit,
arm candy,
drink, eat. Yes, that's exactly that's me. Just there to look pretty.
That's nice. Well, okay, so let's get to the update. Also, we probably already said this, but our live shows are over. Thank you to everyone who came. We're taping this ahead of time, but they're always a blast. And we love doing them. So thank you to anyone who came out and brought friends. If you're a new listener, we do these Sunday special episodes that are little bite-sized versions. And I'm on the road again. Before we get started, I'm heavy into stand-up now.
Yeah, is that your new hobby other than not going to weddings, saying RSVP?
I like to work and I like to not go to weddings. Who wants to date me? And my first stop is glamorous Kansas City, Missouri. So what a catch I am. So Kansas City, Nashville, Stamford, Raleigh, Lexington, Kentucky, Charlotte, North Carolina. So adding dates all the time, jaredfreed.com. Jordana, let's get to our update. We have to get to it.
Yes, this is, I would say, the most substantial update we've ever gotten from a listener.
This is one that people are going to want to share. This is one you're going to want to go back and listen to what we're updating on.
And I found the episode. So it is, if you want some context, if you're a new listener or you haven't listened to every episode, this is from an SOS episode, meaning the caller was on the line with us. You can watch it on the YouTube video. I'm not sure if she showed her face or not, but
and
we saw her and we were discussing with her live her issue.
And we love I like the SOS episodes. I don't know, how do you feel about the SOS episode?
I love the SOS episodes, and we should get some more. I mean, some people say it's like a little bit, it depends on the person that comes on and how much they're willing to give and all that stuff. And so they're not, I think some of them are a little hit or miss. This was a really good one. People really liked this
episode. Of the SOS episodes, this was the one. I would consider this person who came on with us beloved.
Yes.
Truly.
She was very
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Sorry, we're working out Zoom.
No, you go.
She
Sorry,
truly
you go.
beloved by people. Truly, people felt a kinship towards her. She was open, vulnerable. It was this decision of like, and again, it's called Husband or Fuck Off, and it's from February.
Yes. SOS, Husband or Fuck Off, February 19th, Sunday special. You can look at it on YouTube. Well, obviously, if you are listening now and you want to get to it easier, we'll obviously link to it on the Instagram story and the UUP pod feed. And so check it out there if you want a quicker link. But if not, if you want to scroll through the feed, it's the February 19th SOS, Husband or Fuck Off.
2 days prior to the worst day of the year, famously. So people were asking for an update on this. So go back, pause it now, go back and listen. But if you don't want to go back and listen, we have been hearing from DMs, listeners, and now I guess there's a Reddit thread where people were like wondering what happened with this person.
Yes. Well, let's give a little high-end background for what the email was about, so that if you don't have time to listen to an episode again,
Jordana, give the context, because you're better at this than I am. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So the listener wrote in, and I don't remember if she gave her name or not, so I'm not going to give it. And she said she has this job and she's a professor. Did she say she was a professor?
She said that.
Yeah. Okay. So she's a professor and she got offered this like once in a lifetime opportunity at a university that was like on the other side of the country that she felt she couldn't pass up. And she was currently dating a guy that she wasn't really sure what was going on with it, where he saw it going. And she didn't want to pass up this job opportunity if the relationship with the guy didn't really feel like it was going anywhere, and he couldn't move because his job, he like owns his business or something like that, where something made it impossible for him to move with her. So she was sort of at this crossroads of like, do I take the job, give up the guy, or do I pass on the job for this guy that I really like? I'm not sure where it's going, but I feel like generally pretty strongly about it. And I think he was sort of unsure as well, if I recall.
Right. It was really difficult because I think we kind of, over the course of the episode, we all had everyone had differing opinions. Like it definitely wasn't black or white what that answer should be, but she needed a black and white answer.
Yeah, it's one of those very tough dilemmas. Right. And I think by the end of it, my decision was husband or fuck off. And that if he wasn't going to be able to commit to something like a really serious relationship that he saw definitely leading to marriage, then she had to go and take the job. And I forget, were you in agreement?
I think I agreed. I think there was something in me. I didn't go back and listen. I should have gone back and listened. I think I was just wary of like this, like I wasn't sure, I think at the time, and I hope I'm not misremembering, but I wasn't sure if this was like his out.
Right. We discussed that.
Like I wasn't
sure if this was like, he's not sure, she's going to leave, and then he's kind of like, well, now I don't have to break up with her if I was eventually going to do that anyway.
Right. And if he was not, and if he was kind of like dancing around now, I wasn't sure if he was an actual serious contender.
Yes. And I mean, she was great. I think our advice to her was like, definitely take the job. And especially if he's not going to be committed. Right. So this was obviously a few months ago. The listeners really wanted to know what happened with her. We give updates sometimes, but usually those are more, they're sent in and then we read them when they're interesting. But this time, the listeners wanted to know so much that Candace actually reached out to the listener who came on the episode, and she asked her for an update. And we were not expecting the update that we got.
At all. I guess, like, get ready. Because, this is, I got somewhat emotional reading it. Like, do you want to read it? Do you want me to? I can read it.
Go
ahead. Because,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, J&J. I had until May 12th to decide about the job, but on May 4th, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. This meant that I could not take the job because I couldn't risk an interruption in my health insurance. Also, moving cancer treatment is pretty hard.
Moving during
the job agreed to give.
Sorry to interrupt, but
sorry,
moving during.
Sorry,
yeah.
moving. Sorry, I'm sorry. Also, moving during cancer treatment is pretty hard. The job agreed to give me an extension to decide until spring 2024, but at that point, I'll still have to decide whether to move there or try to commute between where my partner and I live and where the job is. In the meantime, because I have to do chemo, we had only a few days to decide if we wanted to freeze eggs or embryos. My partner was totally on board with freezing embryos, so we're still in the process of doing that. The whole situation kind of put the relationship on warp speed, and so we decided to get engaged, and he proposed on May 29th.
Congrats. Yeah.
Honestly, I appreciate him so much because it would have been totally understandable for him to bail on me, given that all of this is heavy and it may mean he never gets to have kids, which he wanted more than I did. But instead, he leaned into being with me. I'm hoping that after the cancer treatment, there's still a way for me to have the job without it affecting our relationship. But I guess life kind of made that decision for me, for now at least. So it's a partial happy ending. The relationship is great, the job is on hold, and I have to have cancer treatment. I know it's kind of a bummer of an update on the one hand, but the good news is that I got an even better guy than I realized at the time that I wrote to you all. And we're moving forward.
It's unbelievable. I hope she's doing okay. I hope she's, we're cheering for her,
of course,
obviously, but, what do you...
I'm sure the whole U-Up community is rooting for her and thinking of her and, wishing her the best.
And it's such a weird mix of emotions. I feel upset that she's going through what she's going through. There's a piece of me that's like, she's found a part. The way she writes about the way he's stepped up is like, it makes you happy, and, You know why
I like this email a lot?
Why is that?
Too. Is because I think it is realistic and it takes a lot of the like bullshit like rule type stuff like out of the equation. I think it's a really realistic thing for what happens. Like people aren't I think there's this like, especially among women, there's this romanticized thing of like, if he wanted to, he would, or like, he has to know, if he doesn't know immediately that he wants to marry you, then like, fuck him.
Right.
And I think what this is a much more realistic picture of what a real relationship looks like, where it's like, most of the time, it's a little bit more gray than that. Most of the time, the person's like, I love this person. I could see it. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be the end of the world if it didn't happen. But like, I feel really strongly. And I think in this case, it's like the cancer diagnosis probably really made him have to envision what a life without her would be in a different way than even her moving. Where if she moves, maybe in his mind, he's like, well, one day, maybe one day I can move, or she moves back, or she it's her thing. Right. And now he kind of like had to really think about it, which made him more decisive. Right. And I think that kind of stuff happens a lot.
It is funny to be like, it took cancer to get this guy to, take life seriously. But I agree with you. I have that same thing. This shows like, it's like when someone's like, my father is the best man I've ever met in my life. And it's like, to someone else, your father was a fuckboy. To someone else, your father wasn't the one who
was non-committal,
didn't step up. And
right.
This is kind of where my mind went, where it's like, this guy was, when she says like in her email, it's funny, her perspective, because she goes, because it would have, she goes, I appreciate him so much because it would have been totally understandable for him to bail on me. Like, I don't know how understandable that would have been to people, but like,
I think that would have been understandable.
Honestly.
I don't think he would have looked like amazing, but I don't think, honestly, like if anyone was put in that situation, I think it would be more understandable to be like, okay, like I'm still not sure. I don't want to make this decision under the stress of this happening. And so I'm either going to, again, still stay indecisive or maybe say no, maybe
Right.
say like that I'm not sure enough to do this. And I think that would be a totally understandable position. I think that would be a lot more understandable than him being like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And then like bailing after.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? After she's already made because she has to make the decision to let you a little behind the curtain, the fertility curtain of like, she can get eggs and just have the eggs, but it has you have a higher chance of like success if you make embryos rather than eggs, because it's just like a more stable
What's the
thing.
difference? I'll be the idiot.
So
I am the idiot.
Eggs are, when you freeze eggs, it's like you're just, and I'm sure she had to do this because she's undergoing chemo, which could damage like the eggs or the embryos, or again, I don't know that much about it, but that's what I'm assuming. So they take eggs from you, and if like a lot of single women will freeze their eggs if they're not with a partner. So you go in and they take the eggs out and they freeze them, and then you can fertilize them at a later date, but they're a little bit more sensitive to freezing and unfreezing if they're just eggs.
They put them in an egg carton, and then they put them in the fridge.
And they freeze them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They cryo freeze them. But when you're making embryos, you need sperm.
Oh, so this is like we're putting them together is what we're saying.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's why she's saying it was a big decision.
Right.
Like these are like, I can either make embryos with us together or I can just do the eggs.
I gotcha. So this was
it's a real conversation. And that's why I'm saying it would be more fucked up for him to be like, oh yeah, make the embryos. And then 6 months later, actually should have gotten eggs because I'm not really sure. Like that would, to me, like that would be really fucked up. And what he's doing, I think, is amazing. And I think, again, like there would be like three scenarios here. The worst one would be he says yes now, changes his mind later, but he proposed. Right. So clearly he's decided he's in, and then he's all in. I think a lot of guys do this too, where it's like sometimes they're on the fence a little bit. And I'm not going to say Mike was on the fence, but I think I was there a lot earlier than he was. Right. And then I think once he decided that he was like in, he was like fully in.
I'm the same way. I totally understand that. Like that's why when we talk about like the talk, like I think a lot of guys when it's like, well, what do you want from this? They get into this like, what does that mean? They get 7,000 steps ahead of themselves, and then it's like the woman always comes to us and it's like, I wasn't trying to get married, and that's all he's thinking about, and he's thinking of like the daunting responsibility and all this stuff, and then it's like once you're thrown into the fire, you go, oh, it's not that hot. You go, oh, I can deal with this. I made it into such a scarier thing. I think women are braver in that way. They're like I think men are just, in constant fear. Will I be able to provide? Will I be able to be, an adult man? Am I going will I enjoy, the sexual part? All the, all the things that go into a relationship. Yeah. I think men get like very like, I can just do nothing, and this guy, once he was in it with her, it is like super sweet and like makes it so amazing that they're both like, it was funny. You wrote back to me when I texted you, cause I read like the first sentence and I was like, oh my God, this update is like unbelievable. I'm outside of like fucking Blackstone Coffee crying. And I'm like, there's just so much going on here. And you're like, and you text me back, you're like, best case scenario. Like, and I'm like, well, she has cancer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was so funny. Well, I'll read it. And I was like, Jared, who cares if she has cancer? She is engaged.
And I was like, I don't know what to feel.
And she's got those embryos. Yeah.
And there was so, like, I don't know, I felt like such a dumb, I still feel like a dumb dude. Like I just even like you explaining the embryos versus this, and I'm happy for their partnership now. Like I don't know, like it's like it's just so many things wrapped into one update. I can't believe it exists.
I'm really happy that this happened. I mean, I'm not really happy that that she has cancer, but I think that like in it. Sometimes one aspect of your life can really impact another aspect of your life. And I do wonder, like, if this didn't happen, maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have have been brought together in this way. Maybe sometimes you need like a life put. I mean, people talk about this all the time with like near death experiences, on their own or someone else's, or it just kind of things that put things into perspective. And so I think that like that can happen a lot in these kinds of dating and relationship things, maybe not always on this scale, but on different levels. And I think it's amazing that, again, I think that like this is obviously the cancer part is a little bit maybe potentially less relatable, but the idea that like someone could be on the fence and then something happens that shifts their perspective and they decide they're in, and it doesn't mean they're going to be like this shitty boyfriend. Right. And then because you had to ask them about where they were, about where this was going, that they're always going to be like 1 foot out the door. Like he decided he was in, he stepped up, and he's like fully there. And again, I disagree that it would have been fucked up of him to leave. I think that would have been a totally reasonable thing to do. I think he didn't have to do any of this. And so I'm really happy for her that she saw that who he was. And like she said at the end, like, I realized I got a greater guy than I even expected, because you're dating someone, you don't know how they're going to react if something really terrible happens to you.
I totally relate to this in a weird way. You know, the cancer part is something I don't know or have experienced, but I was thinking about this, like the person you are as a single person versus the person you are as a relationship person. I think like a lot of people are like their best selves in a relationship, and then you're like this, and as a single person, you're just a little bit more judgy. You're a little bit more selfish. You know, you're a little.
Well, that makes sense because you are living for yourself.
And it's not a bad thing. It's just the reality. And it is, you know, I relate to him being like, because I just being this good boyfriend that maybe she's surprised by, because it's like, wait a minute, he's never not around for my texts. Well, yeah, he's with you, like there's no distraction. There's no, what am I going to do on Saturday? It's what are we going to do on Saturday? And that's a better, and I agree. Your perspective on this is spot on. It is, I hope people, I don't know. This is just, I don't even know what to say. There's so many things, there was so many twists and turns in this update that I like, am fully like, I'm not speechless. I'm never speechless, but
yeah, I mean, I'm happy she also got the extension on the job thing, because that's still a problem she's going to have to fix. But it seems like now they're going into the problem as like a we problem,
right?
Instead of like a her problem.
It is so funny where like an update like this makes everyone go on different directions. Like I kind of like you were like big win, engaged, like this.
Killed it.
Right. I was kind of on this like. I kept thinking of like his decision-making process and, the idea of like how he would look as far as a partner, like stay or go. I was kind of stuck on that. I sent it to a friend and they wrote back. They're like, does he feel weird being the choice between him and work? And I was like, it's so interesting that like, that's a different way to look at this. Is like, I guess he was never offended by, like, I was wondering, would you be offended if you heard this podcast where this guy was like, stay or go, and then you get sick? Do you know what I mean? And then he's just like,
and what's interesting, would I be offended if I were her? Where it felt like
he
only, if I were him.
Because,
and you're saying if I were him, being where I am now, being my fiance has cancer, and she recorded this episode before this whole thing where the host told her to take the job,
right? And she's like, and she goes, you know what, I'm taking the job. And then she, fiance gets, I don't want to even put names on this because we don't want to wish this on. I'm a superstitious person, but you go, your fiance gets cancer, and then they're like, I guess this is our life. Want in? Like, I don't know. Is it was interesting. I never thought of it from that angle. I wouldn't think of it that way, but I don't know. Would you?
If I'm putting myself in his position, no, because you know why I wouldn't? Because she on that episode was like so incredibly like rational and thoughtful and like really, really went at it from like all the different angles.
I agree.
And you know, she was a professor, so I guess that makes sense. So I'm kind of like, she didn't go on to this being like, what do I do about this like asshole who won't like immediately agree to like give up his life and follow me to the other side of the country? She went in it, I think, like, you know, giving him the benefit of the doubt, really stating what happened, not over romanticizing it either on the other end, not being like, you know, he's obsessed, like he's clearly so into me that he'll do whatever. Like, she had a very reasonable perspective on it and described the opportunity, I think, also really well. So I don't think I'd be offended if I were
Well,
him.
It goes back.
It's hard to imagine a scenario where I wouldn't commit to someone that I had been dating.
Well, it goes back to the scenario. It goes back to what you said about like this, like, date him or what if he wants to, he will. Like, she's on one end also saying, good guy, but I could do this job. You know, like, and that's, there's humanity in that of like, which way life goes, you know, like, you know, you're going to be fine with the job. You're going to be fine if you stay, you know? And it's like, you know, she's also not saying, I love him, I need him, ooh baby, ooh baby. Like, she was also, you know, in the same way that he's allowed to do that too, you know? And yeah, I think her perspective shifts. Okay, look at, you know, too.
Of course.
You know,
I also think it puts into perspective the idea of like, she, you know, that's the big, and at the time that was the biggest issue in her life of like, do I take the job? Do I stay with the guy? Do I do these things? And then you get like a cancer scare and you're kind of like, wow, like all of this is almost like kind of meaningless. Like, in some ways, like I'm making all these plans, but like maybe there's bigger plans that have not, like, that are in store for me that I've never anticipated that are going to totally change my life potentially at a different course. And I think you get a lot, your priorities change. And maybe also that aspect of it was something that was intriguing to him about her shift also. Like maybe he's on the fence before because it seems like she needs this answer, and then she gets the diagnosis and she's kind of like, you know, I've got to make the eggs or the embryos, and it's fine if you don't want to know, but I need to make this decision. And my life is, you know, on the line. I think maybe that in some ways makes him see her from a different light.
Absolutely. This is, you know, there's so many ways to look at it, but, you know, I'm choosing positivity. She's going to be great. And, you know, we're all cheering for her, and I'm cheering for this relationship. I'm like almost excited for them.
Same here. I actually think like it's also just nice to think of negative things as potentially having positive side effects.
Right. It's, listen,
which feels weird to say, but like, you know, your cancer is not a good thing, obviously. But
there's maybe
good things can come out of bad situations.
Literally, a baby could come out of this. You know, like it's unbelievable.
So, please next year when you're rounding your, you know, the extension.
Yeah, we want another update.
Can you please please update us again as to what ultimately happens since she got this extension. We want to know what's happening with the cancer. We wish you the best. Let's do a stupid email now.
I texted you earlier and I said, okay, and next up, the guy who checks in with a woman every 6 months to fuck.
On the line of things that don't mean anything.
You want me to read this email?
Yeah, why don't you do it? And I'll be the woman for the text message.
Hey J&J, feather, Sweden calling. This is a guy I used to sleep with. Sex. I can't believe we just went from a beautiful story of cancer to this is a guy I used to fuck.
Does he like me?
Sex was good. Sex was good. Mutual fade out. He texts me like every 6 months to a year. But every time he gives me nothing to work with, and it generally always looks similar to the screenshot attached. So I'll be him, you be her. You ready? This was at 11:17. Is it
She gives a little. It's like in Swedish. So
EM.
EM means PM.
Okay. Hey, just doing the annual check-in. You good?
And then at 1:40 a.m. she writes, "Song boy, I'm good. Yes, you?
All's well." At this is like
The 8 a.m. the next
All's
morning.
well. Well, awesome. Talk to you in 2024 then. And she just wrote okay. Yeah.
So then finish the email.
The timestamp says booty call, but there's zero flirt, in my opinion. I know I kind of missed the booty boat with my slow reply, but also it's hard to know how to get it to my bedroom when he's being so passive. So I always end up just meeting him with the same energy back. Honestly, I would be open for a sexy meet if he gave me literally anything to work with. Please tell me what this means. Did I just miss the booty boat? Or was he never driving it to my island? Signed, wants to be a passenger but can't find where to buy the damn ticket. P.S. Some Swedish translations. IGAR means yesterday. IDAG means today. EM is PM. FM is AM. Okay, Song Boy is an inside joke. Okay, go. Jordana, what do you think?
I think that there's nothing wrong with this situation, but I think he could leave a little more mystery to it.
It's
like
a little.
There were people I would go out with like once a year, or like, if we were both feeling kind of desperate, but to label it that way sort of like takes away from the fun of it, in my opinion.
It's a little too functional. It's a little too, a little too mechanical. Here's what she should do. Just text him, "I have stage 2 breast cancer."
Do you want to freeze embryos?
Right, something like that. Yeah.
See if you hear from him again.
Thanks for checking in. Little update from last time. I've been No, I guess the joke is to be mechanical, like that we say, "See you in 2024." He is letting you know, I'm here, I'm available in one way or another. But
he's keeping his roster up. It's almost like, at Christmas time when you get, I don't know if you get this, if you get like a random like card from like your accountant, yes, that's like, that's like, "Season's greetings from like the firm of Smith and Jones," where you're kind of like, why is this necessary? And then and then when I think about it, I'm like, oh, they just want to like maintain the relationship so that when you need accounting, will think of them. They're marketing themselves.
Why does Coca-Cola have any commercials at all? We all know Coca-Cola exists. We know the price. They want to be top of mind. This is a way of being just like the accountant. I want to be top of mind. If you're in need, and I'm going to do very little. This is what I think of what we are. Like, I'm here. I got a penis. If you're in need of a penis.
If you're ever in need.
Right.
Yeah. Just know, the last time we spoke won't have been years ago.
Right. And I'm never going to be an awkward reach out. It's really letting her know that. Like, it's never, these waters are totally calm for you to swim in. You want to come over here? You want to get a little wet? I'm here. We're ready to go. No waves, no treacherous beasts, just one beast. This guy. That's what he's saying.
Right.
And I guess she's looking for more effort from this guy, and that's the turnoff, right? Like,
right. He's being too honest.
Right. It's
almost.
Right. It's like if he had said, "Hey, I'm having a drink right now. I would love to come. Was thinking about you. Come have a drink."
Yeah.
That would be even like at least. But I think from the. I think from the guy side of things, like I guess the fear is like, I don't want to show too much because then it will be something I get called out on. So let me be a total zero so that you come to me and I don't get blamed for maybe this getting, like, I don't think he even would assume that she would write to us. Honestly, I'd be open for a sexy meet if you give me literally anything. Like, I don't think he would assume that would be something she's writing.
I mean, it's funny because I do feel like it's kind of like really good communication is not hot, but I think it's actually much more mentally healthy.
Of course.
Like what you're saying, like the way he's doing it is actually much healthier than if he were like, do you want to get a drink or do you want to grab dinner or something like that? Like that would, if it was, and we've talked about this before. I've talked about this with like guys. If you have like a one night stand or if you sleep with them, it's almost more annoying if they text you like, how's your day going the next day if they have no intention of asking you out. Because then you're like, oh, like, is this going to be like, could this be a thing? And they have no intention for it to be a thing, but they want to be like a nice guy. So they'll text you, how's your day going? You hungover, blah, 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 whatever. Which is actually worse for you. So this is like a good example of like extremely clear communication, not super hot at all, but I respect it from like a mental health perspective.
Right. Many women that I've hooked up with are nodding in agreement with what you just said. Cause I am Mr. How you been? What's going on? Good to see you. Right. You know, like I'm
because you want to be like, seem like they're the nice guy.
And I honestly have no ill will towards anyone. I actually do. Hey, how you been? Are you hungover? I would send that text because I have no one else to talk to. You know, like I don't, you know, like for this week, I am that person to that person, you know?
Right. Whereas I would prefer like no communication. If you're not going to ask me out, I don't want to hear from you.
Right. And I kind of wish that was a setting on a phone. Like I kind of wish, you know, that instead of like do not disturb, it was like do not text unless you actually want to date. Even if we fucked before, like I wish I had that written.
Yes.
On, you know, this phone is in do not text.
Automatic reply from.
Right. So like, cause this guy, he does want to hook up, like, you know, like he wouldn't, there's attraction, there's interest, there's compatibility. He also doesn't want to date you. So right. How does he say that?
It's refreshing.
It is refreshing. In a way. And it's also very, Jordana, I tour in Europe sometimes. I'm an international comedian now. So
I'm aware.
So
yeah.
I know I've gotten a taste of this part of the world. This is, I don't know if this is an American writing to us that's living in Sweden, but she says he's the Swedish guy. Okay. But that part of the world, that's kind of how they are. They're a little bit like, everyone, especially the men, just feel very engineering brain to me.
Okay. Like a logical, not less game.
Less game, less emotional. Just, yes, we go to the bar. You know, like it's not like we got to go to this fantastic bar. It's just, let's go to a bar. So I do understand, like, if she's an American and she's like, what's the deal? I'm like, you know, penis, the language is the same.
Right. Well, it's funny when you were saying that. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, all of the classic romance movies are not set in Sweden. Like... Right. Right. Which is just, that's not like the culture there. It's like primed for, it's not like Hollywood. A true Hollywood romance is not.
Right. It's not a French man being like, oh, I want to smell your neck. You know, like it's, I have penis. I am checking in. Would like to let you know. Penis available. Like that's what he's doing.
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Listen, we solved dating again and a heartwarming tale.
Yeah. What a great Sunday special. I feel super special.
I agree. I'm proud of this podcast. This is like one of those things that I go, I don't know who else could do it like us. If I say so myself.
Yeah. No one can do what we do. Don't even try if you're thinking about starting a podcast.
But we'll be back on Wednesday with more tales from the dating world. Right, Jordana?
That's it for us. Bye. The You Up podcast is produced by Sean Kilby, Maddie Paul, and Jorge Morales-Pico. Editing by Jorge Morales-Pico. Social media by Maddie Paul. Be sure to follow at you.up.podcast on Instagram and send us your emails to uup@betches.com.